Hi, everyone. This is Hal Krosman with Screenwriting U, and today we're going to be talking about writing fascinating scenes. And as you can see, both from the email we sent you and from the picture here, we're going to be looking at the last scene of Dead Poets Society. So let me just walk you through what we're going to be doing. First, we're going to be analyzing that scene, that final scene, to see what they really did that was great and what we can learn from. So you'll love this analysis. This is something that I have felt really strongly about ever since I interviewed the writer. His name is Tom Schulman. And he and I talked about this last scene and a couple of others that were really, really strong in that particular movie. But I've always thought this was one of the best final scenes I've seen. So I'm going to give you a model for analyzing and writing great scenes. And then we'll talk about the upcoming class, Scene Mastery, for those of you who want to write the best scenes you've ever written in your lifetime. And I'm serious about that. So, and you'll see as we get into this. So first question is, how did you experience this particular scene? And I'm asking because I want to see what you think at the end of this, right? How do you see it differently? We've still got so many people coming in. This is amazing. So did you see it as an okay scene? Did you see it as a good scene? Did you see it as an amazing scene? And when you saw it, when you watched it, or even when you watched it just now, what skills did you see used in the writing of this particular scene? And I want you to compare what you think right now to what you think at the end of what we talk about, because I do believe this. As writers, part of our job is to create something amazing, but the other part of our job is to start noticing when someone else does something amazing, right? If you can't see what they're doing that makes their stuff successful, that means there's still another level to step up to. So I think what we're about to do will make a huge difference for you on multiple levels. And that's my job. So let's do this. Oh, by the way, ask yourself this, what did this scene accomplish, right? So the first thing I think it did was it delivered a profound message of this movie more powerfully. And if they had left this scene out, let's say they had completely left this scene out, and all we saw was Mr. Keating leaving, and the boys looking out the window saying, wow, he was a great teacher. Let's say that happened. Do you think this movie would be a movie you would have remembered from that point on, right? Do you think that it would have been, what difference do you think it would have made? Because I'm looking at it and going, wow, if this scene was left out or something just as strong, I think the movie becomes at least somewhat forgettable. And it's not because it's not a great movie, it really is. But the ending on this is incredibly important, especially with what we've been through. This made a tragedy feel meaningful and redemptive, because it is, right? If you look at what happened just before this, one of the boys decided to end his life, and the teacher who was trying to help him achieve, his goals in life got blamed for it. So it was a tragedy in a couple of ways. And on top of that, all the other boys end up losing the teacher that, that had taken them through this journey. So it's, I think it was a very strong tragedy. And this scene gave it the meaning that it really deserved and needed to have. And then it was one of the best resolution scenes ever. And how you know that, by the way, when I decided to create this quite a while ago, I actually searched the words best resolution scenes ever. And this was in the top 10 list of every list I looked at. So just, it's not just me that thinks that. It's not just you that thinks that. It's pretty much anyone who has ever watched this movie and has thought about the endings. So how did it accomplish that? First, there's a whole bunch of emotional payoffs. And we're going to get to those. I'll list them. There's the completion of the transformational journey for Todd, right? So it brings that to an ending. Again, if this scene would have been missing, we wouldn't have seen who Todd is going to be for the rest of his life. It also created the situation where courage and free thinking, which was what Mr. Keating was trying to install and trying to teach the boys, that now became something that they had to do. And second, it meant risking everything. So, and then it declared Keating to be right. He deserved this moment. He absolutely deserved it. He probably deserved more, but this was a pretty strong moment. So now let's jump into how it's written. And if you've got the handout, all of this, you're going to be filling in all of these blanks. But if you don't worry about it. Just take notes. You'll be able to use this from that point on. So first, basic scene structure, level 1. There's a scene arc, right? The scene starts one place, it ends another place. A lot of times I'll see, especially with people who have only written 1 or 2 scripts, I'll see a third of their scenes will be static. They'll essentially be a snapshot. We go to this scene, here's 2 people, they're doing this from start to finish, that's the scene. You want to write powerful scenes? Add a scene arc to that. In this case, it was from the headmaster taking over to the boys paying tribute to Mr. Keating with their protest. Then there's a situation, right? What's the situation? And in this case, it's Mr. Keating is disgraced and he's going to be leaving their lives forever. There's a conflict. The headmaster demanding compliance, right? And threatening them multiple times. There's something that moves the story forward. And even though we're at the very end, right? This is still moving the story forward, right? It brings it to the right ending. And reframes the meaning of this tragedy, right? So it's doing something that's incredibly important to the actual screenplay. And then there's entertainment value. And sometimes people think entertainment means you're laughing. That's true in a comedy. That is one of the primary entertainment values. But in this case, the entertainment value is the emotional journey, experiencing Todd's change, right? That's an internal experience that we have from an external representation, and the fulfillment that Mr. Keating was finally honored. And by the way, that the headmaster was shown to be wrong. So we should add that in also. And then look at all the setups that were paid off. And it's like, it's astounding to see how many things were built into this scene. Think about it. At the very beginning, it starts with the Pritchard scale. They're going back to the Pritchard scale, which Mr. Keating had basically not only trashed, but told them to tear the pages out of the book because he thought the Pritchard scale was so wrong. Now, I think that's amazing because, again, at the end, our headmaster thinks the Pritchard scale is what they need to learn. So Todd blurting out that they were forced to sign, right? This takes us back to him being forced to sign. It's also for the first time we're seeing Todd speak up. So I think it also is a great setup for what's about to happen. So then Todd standing on the desk, which was something that Keating taught them. Oh, Captain, my Captain, something that Keating taught them. Todd then leading the protest. This shows his arc. right? He's the guy who was so afraid in the beginning he couldn't talk to anybody. If somebody even looked at the paper had written, he'd freak out completely. His whole life, this is showing that he's changed in a big way. And then the other boys who stood, right? And the boys who didn't, every one of the boys who didn't stand was also part of paying off who they really were. And finally, their message that Keating was right. So now we're at level 2. So level 1 is the basics, right? It's the stuff that had to be there for a scene to work. Level 2, now what we're doing is we're taking the scene to a much higher level, adding much more emotional connection with the audience. It starts with urgency. There is an urgency in this situation, right? We're at the very last time that Todd is ever going to see Mr. Keating. He knows that there was an injustice done. He wants to right it somehow. The urgency is a big part of what forces him to stand. If Mr. Keating was sitting in the back and going to watch the last class, and then they were going to do a little ceremony at the end, this wouldn't have happened, right? Because there was no urgency there. It's like, well, yeah, we're going to see the ceremony, and that brings us to completion and all these wonderful things that weren't available in this situation, where basically what we had was an impending doom. For Todd, if he let Mr. Keating walk out the door without saying something, that would have bothered him for the rest of his life. So then we have a surprise. Todd jumps up, tells Mr. Keating they were forced to sign. This is the first surprise, first time he jumped up. Both of these create emotion for the audience. Then we have a twist. He steps up on the desk. Oh, Captain, my Captain. Again, that's an emotional experience. It's also a surprise, but it's a major twist, because up until this point, if we just stopped the movie at that moment and asked the audience, what's Todd going to do? They would say, very likely, he's going to sit there and go through this humiliating emotional experience and never be able to say another thing to Keating, right? My guess is they wouldn't have seen this twist coming. So, and then rising tension. And this is where the headmaster is yelling at him over and over, threatening him to sit down multiple times. And I can't remember, I'd have to look to see. But when I watched it this time, what I was surprised at was how many times the headmaster actually yelled, and it's only him standing there. So he's not only having to step up for the first time, he's having to continue to stand up against the opposition of the headmaster without any support from the other boys yet. Right. And so I don't know how many times, we'd have to go back and look, but at least 3 or 4 times the headmaster yells at him and tells him he's going to be expelled. He's going to be thrown out. So then we have another twist. Todd stands strong no matter what the headmaster yells. And finally, the other boys start stepping up one at a time. So notice again, all this stuff that's built in that makes this scene something that is emotionally fulfilling, that also makes it make sense for what's happening, that fits for Todd's journey. Now let's go to level 3. Making it insightful. Because this is the next level up. It's like you can have, like if you think about action movies, you go to an action movie, you're watching some of the action sequences, and they have a lot of stuff in them. A lot of things are happening. But after you leave the theater, my guess is if they had 5 action sequences, my guess is you probably only remember the last one at that moment. If we talk to you a week later, you might not even remember that. It depends on how they wrote it. But if you make something insightful, people are going to remember it. So in this case, first, there was irony. The headmaster started with the exact reading that Keating had them tear out of the book. So that's irony. Keating had trashed it. The headmaster is honoring it. It's showing the difference. Second, there was subtext. In this case, not only Keating has a much deeper understanding of poetry, but the boys actually do, right? So this headmaster is just operating off the book. He has no idea what's really possible in that situation and what they've already learned, which is another form of subtext there. There's a dilemma. If Todd remains silent to get the headmaster's approval, he's going to be in pain for the rest of his life about this. If he stands up and speaks, he puts himself in serious jeopardy. So there's the two sides. Either side has a negative component to it that Todd doesn't want, right? His whole life actually has been about not standing up to speak. So this dilemma is a pretty strong one for Todd. There are the reveals. There's a bunch of different reveals in this one. Yeah, so I'll talk about those in just a second. But let me talk about it right now. So we've got that Todd has grown and changed. That's a reveal. That he would have never been able to do this. But there's also the reveals about the other boys, which ones stand, which ones don't, right? There's a reveal actually about the headmaster. There's a certain point he's yelling, and now it's like 7, 8 boys up. And at some point there, he stops yelling as if he's given in, as if it's futile, right? These boys are going to stand no matter what he says or what kind of threats he gives. So, it's like that. I think that's really emotionally powerful. There's betrayal and trust. Notice the redheaded boy, and there's a couple of others that were in there, but the redheaded boy who actually directly betrayed them, he turned snitch against them. He doesn't stand up, right? And he's the one who started the scene being, reading things. And, it's like, so this shows who he is in that situation. Now, what makes a scene great? And you can think about it a lot of different ways. But in the midst of what we've been talking about, I've given you at least some of this, but let me just say it this way. I think this is a mystery. And I think this is a mystery that our job is to solve as writers. If I go back to when I first started writing, what I thought made a scene great at that point was actually what just makes it basic. I had completely left out some of the things that really truly make it great. In fact, I didn't even have any idea what those were. So I'm going to tell you, great scenes are written by insightful writers. And the key to this is first to start to analyze some of the best writing, right? What we did today, my hope, has already had you start to see some things that maybe you didn't see before, has had you see things in this scene that you didn't see before. That doesn't mean that anybody's smarter than anybody else. What it means is we've taken the time to analyze it. We've taken the time to go through and look at it through a specific model. Then I'd say the next level up is to have breakthroughs. And if you're just watching this kind of thing and just going, okay, that's an interesting piece of information, that's one thing. Likely it won't stick. But if you really truly have a breakthrough, if you have one of those aha moments where everything changes, very likely that's going to stick. Now, here's the most important thing, I think, is to learn how to write from breakthroughs. And this I haven't heard. This I haven't seen in anything else that's out there. We spent a lot of time looking at how do you do this? How do you write from breakthroughs, right? First, how do you create the breakthroughs? Because That's incredibly important. If you write something and the first draft of it you're emotionally connected to and you're deeply engaged with, uh, if it's ever going to become great so that an audience can experience the same thing, chances are you're going to have to find even more depth, right? It's like this is one of the things that is a part of the difficult journey of a writer. You When you get emotionally connected to something, you've spent a lot of time working with it, right? You've gone through all the emotional journey of figuring out who the characters are, figuring out what the scenes are, figuring out what the structure is, all of that kind of thing. You have so much internal experience that the reader and the audience doesn't have. They didn't see the 6 drafts before the final one. They didn't see those moments where you were going through agonizing over how this thing is going to end up. They didn't experience any of the deeper story, the backstory that to the characters that we don't see on the screen, right? You have so many more things built into your experience that they don't have. Just as important, how often have you written something and then come back, say 6 months later or a year later, and went, oh my God, it needs something deeper or it needs something more, right? I think one of the most difficult things for people is building depth beyond what they've already seen and experienced. So, uh, from a quality of writing perspective, looking at it from this perspective, I think most people from a big beginner perspective, it's just whatever comes to you, right? It's like when I first started writing, whatever came to me. Yes, I would analyze and try to figure out some things, but mostly it was what came to me. And that's fairly surface level. Then for good writers, it becomes about discovering depth. For great writers, it's writing from breakthroughs. I've interviewed about 125 A-list screenwriters over the last 15 years. And the thing that I noticed, and I didn't notice it like this up front, but the thing I noticed was they were thinking at a different level, right? And it's like, and they were creating at a different level. Uh, and so this is the thing that I say they're coming from. They've spent the time, they've found the breakthroughs, and I'm talking breakthroughs about writing, also breakthroughs about story, breakthroughs about character, right? How do you design and create your creative process so that you are living through and having breakthroughs on a regular basis? So that's what we were trying to accomplish. And what I've given you so far having to do with scenes is the what, right? You have a list of information and one great example as to what makes a great scene on 3 different levels. But in order to really become great at this and to have it be something that is a natural part of your writing, uh, you need to be able to actually go through the creative processes, the breakthrough processes, the way the steps that actually get you to the point of being a truly great writer who other writers admire, who people in the industry admire, right? And who anytime somebody looks at your writing, they go, oh my God, what this writer did was incredible. So let me walk you through how to learn this. As we first, I've had scene classes before where I taught how to do scenes, and then people came out with good scenes. But we put together a class that is all about the part about how to have the breakthroughs, how to have the kind of breakthroughs that will have you writing at a level you never even thought was possible for you before. So stay with me here for about 5 minutes. Let me just walk you through this. At minimum, the question is, what if you doubled the quality of your scene writing? And I don't mean doubled the quality of a few scenes. I mean, what if you actually took the best writing you've ever done and doubled the quality of every scene in that script? What kind of a difference would that make for you? Because it really does make a difference at a level that you'll be stunned about. So you do this with your current script, it'll change the reader experience. It'll change how people interact with you. It'll change the level of respect. It'll also confirm that you're a professional. You're somebody who stands out. And that's what this particular class is about. The class objective is to have you become one of those stunning scene writers who any scene that you choose to use this model on, people remember from that point on, and they talk about and they work with. So the class is called Scene Mastery. It is a 30-day class. Its whole purpose is to create breakthroughs in quality and to give you control of having breakthroughs. Think about this. When was the last time that you had a real breakthrough that you would say actually changed your writing? What this class will do is give you the ability to do that, to be able to intentionally do that, to be able to think things through in a way that changes and elevates the writing. We do this class once a year. That's it. Because you'll actually see it's a lot. In it, you're going to analyze great scenes every day. So what we just did, the process we just did, essentially you're going to do that at 5 days a week in that class. We will give you great scenes. You're going to analyze them using the model. You will work with those scenes. You will basically work with scenes from 20 different perspectives. My guess is people who have only written one script are working with scenes from maybe 2 perspectives. Somebody who's written 3 or 4 scripts may be working with scenes from 4 or 5 perspectives. The pros are working with it from 20 different perspectives. So you will get that experience. You'll master many types of scenes. There are different types, and you want to make sure you have that. You will learn to get control over this thing of insights and breakthroughs. This will change the quality of your writing in a huge way. Even if you stayed at the same quality level and you added insights and breakthroughs, you're probably going to already double the quality of your scenes. So that's how much of a difference it makes. And then you're going to build all of those insights into your current script. Now, really, let me say one last thing on this, and then I'll give you a special. When I talk with A-list screenwriters, and when I've interviewed them in front of audiences of other writers, the things that they are thinking and the way that they process is different than people who are just doing okay in contest or even being finalist. There is a major, major difference in how they think. And I'm telling you, this is it. So if what you want to do is become a great writer, you absolutely need this. Now, the normal price on this is $199. For the first 20 that sign up, our system is set so that you'll get in for $129. After that, then it goes up from there. The class actually starts on January 29th. So that's in a couple of weeks. It'll give you a chance to kind of look at whatever script you want to use that you'll be working with as you go through this process and decide which one it is, and maybe even do a quick rewrite. It doesn't matter. You will still end up elevating the quality of those scenes. You will discover things you had never seen before. And from a scene writing perspective, your writing will change in a huge way. All you got to do is just take this link, write it down, bit.ly, bit.ly/scene order, SCENEORDER. Take that, no caps, no spaces, put it into a browser where you normally put a web address, click it, go through the sign up process, and you're in. Starting Monday, January 29th, you will be learning new things about scenes every single day. You will learn our breakthrough process and how that works. You will start applying that to your thinking and your creating. By the end of February, You will have this process down. You will be writing scenes at a much, much higher level. You will understand why certain scenes have such an impact on audiences and others don't. And you will see scenes with so much more depth as a writer. So if those things are important to you, and if you really do want to take this new, come to this new level of writing, come join us. I promise you, you will love what this class does for you. There's a money back guarantee if after the third day or at the end of the third day, Wednesday, if you don't like it for any reason, just email us and we will give you your money back, and that'll be it. We take really good care of our writers. So I hope you join this. I promise you, the writers that have already gone through it, their scenes are very, very different than what they wrote before. They're still given it's still the same story, but it's the quality of the writing, it's the depth, it's the power that the scenes have, it's the emotional level that the audiences and the readers experience. So this is absolutely worth it. So with that, again, if you want to sign up, just write this link down and put it in your browser. Jump in. First 20 get in at this special. After that, the price goes up. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you already got a lot out of this. Our objective every time we do any of these kinds of things is to elevate the quality of our audience, to elevate the quality of who you are as a writer. And in the classes, we take full responsibility for making sure you're the best writer you can be. So with that, listen, this is Hal Krosman with Screenwriting U, wishing you the absolute best in your writing. Bye-bye, everyone.